Notwithstanding his commission in the Musketeers, D'Artagnan felt completely solitary. For a time the delightful remembrance of Madame Bonancieux left on his character a certain poetic tinge, perishable indeed, for like all other recollections in this world, these impressions were, by degrees, effaced. A garrison life is fatal even to the most aristocratic organization, and imperceptibly D'Artagnan, always in the camp, always on horseback, always in garrison, became, I know not how in the present age one would express it, a typical trooper. His early refinement of character was not only not lost, it grew even greater than ever, but it was now applied to the little, instead of to the great things of life, to the martial condition of the soldier, comprised under the head of a good lodging, a rich table, a congenial hostess. These important advantages D'Artagnan found to his own taste in the Rue Tiquetonne at the sign of the Roe. From the time D'Artagnan took quarters in that hotel, the mistress of the house, a pretty and fresh-looking Flemish woman, 25 or 26 years old, had been singularly interested in him, and after certain love passages, much obstructed by an inconvenient husband to whom a dozen times D'Artagnan had made a pretence of passing a sword through his body, that husband had disappeared one fine morning, after furtively selling certain choice lots of wine, carrying away with him money and jewels. He was thought to be dead, his wife especially, who cherished the pleasing idea that she was a widow, stoutly maintained that death had taken him. Therefore, after the connection had continued 3 years, carefully fostered by D'Artagnan, who found his bed and his mistress more agreeable every year, each doing credit to the other, the mistress conceived the extraordinary desire of becoming a wife, and proposed to D'Artagnan that he should marry her. "Ah, fie!" D'Artagnan replied. "Bigamy? My dear, come now, you don't really wish it. But he is dead, I am sure of it. He was a very contrary fellow, and might come back on purpose to have us hanged." "All right. If he comes back you will kill him. You are so skilful and so brave. Peste, my darling, another way of getting hanged. So you refuse my request?" "To be sure I do, furiously." The pretty landlady was desolate. She would have taken D'Artagnan not only as her husband, but as her god. He was so handsome, and had so fierce a moustache. Then, along toward the 4th year, came the expedition of Franche-Comté. D'Artagnan was assigned to it, and made his preparations to depart. There were then great griefs, tears without end, and solemn promises to remain faithful, all, of course, on the part of the hostess. D'Artagnan was too grand to promise anything. He proposed only to do all that he could to increase the glory of his name. As to that, we know D'Artagnan's courage. He exposed himself freely to danger, and while charging at the head of his company, he received a ball through the chest which laid him prostrate on the field of battle. He had been seen falling from his horse, and had not been seen to rise every one, therefore, believed him to be dead, especially those to whom his death would give promotion. One believes readily what he wishes to believe. Now in the army, from the division generals who desire the death of the general-in-chief, to the soldiers who desire the death of the corporals, all desire some one's death. But D'Artagnan was not a man to let himself be killed like that. After he had remained through the heat of the day unconscious on the battlefield, the cool freshness of the night brought him to himself. He gained a village, knocked at the door of the finest house, and was received as the wounded are always and everywhere received in France. He was petted, tended, cured, and one fine morning, in better health than ever before, he set out for France. Once in France, he turned his course toward Paris, and reaching Paris went straight to Rue Tiquetonne. But D'Artagnan found in his chamber the personal equipment of a man, complete, except for the sword, arranged along the wall. "He has returned," said he, "so much the worse, and so much the better." It need not be said that D'Artagnan was still thinking of the husband. He made inquiries and discovered that the servants were new and that the mistress had gone for a walk. "Alone?" asked D'Artagnan. "With Monsieur. Monsieur has returned." "Then, of course," naively replied the servant. "If I had any money," said D'Artagnan to himself, "I would go away, but I have none. I must stay and follow the advice of my hostess." While thwarting the conjugal designs of this inopportune apparition, he had just completed this monologue, which proves that in momentous circumstances nothing is more natural than the monologue, when the servant maid, watching at the door, suddenly cried out, "Ah, see, here is Madame returning with Monsieur." D'Artagnan looked out, and at the corner of Rue Montmartre saw the hostess coming along hanging to the arm of an enormous Swiss, who tiptoed in his walk with a magnificent air which pleasantly reminded him of his old friend Porthos. "Is that Monsieur?" said D'Artagnan to himself. "Oh, he has grown a good deal, it seems to me," and he sat down in the hall, choosing a conspicuous place. The hostess, as she entered, saw D'Artagnan and uttered a little cry, whereupon D'Artagnan, judging that he had been recognized, rose, ran to her and embraced her tenderly. The Swiss, with an air of stupefaction, looked at the hostess, who turned pale. "Ah, it is you, Monsieur. What do you want of me?" she asked, in great distress. "Is Monsieur your cousin? Is Monsieur your brother?" said D'Artagnan, not in the slightest degree embarrassed in the role he was playing. And without waiting for her reply, he threw himself into the arms of the Helvetian, who received him with great coldness.